we know how each of us feels, perhaps we should not be afraid to explore those feelings.
Or perhaps we should be afraid.
Set a course for love.
Ah, yes. One of your earth emotions.
Glad I found you.
Let's get married.
Delete the wife.
Welcome back to Deep Space Love, the Star Trek podcast, where a married Trekkie couple explore love in all its forms throughout the final frontier. I'm Nicole, one of your hosts.
I'm one of the other hosts, Joe.
Joe, you're the only other host.
What's up?
We do this every time.
What's up?
Not much. I'm feeling like the summer vibes starting, so I'm very excited.
You say that because I'm sweaty and I smell.
That is not true.
I'm very sweaty.
It was like 80 degrees and sunny here in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Which is a blessing because
Another classic Minnesota weather convo.
I know we're terrible Midwesterners.
It's okay.
Anyway, I'm excited about recording tonight and chatting our topic today.
Yeah, we got a special guest.
We do have a guest with us today, a guest for the first time, hopefully not the last time. Today with us is fellow Trekkie and Beverly Crusher superfan, Jessi of the Crusher Convo podcast. Welcome, Jessi.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
We're excited to have you and dive into this.
I don't want to take the super fan crown. There are a lot of Beverly Crusher fans out there. I just happen to be more, vocal in a lot of ways, I guess.
There can be a group, like levels.
Exactly. Yeah.
A conglomerate of superfans.
A conglomerate of superfans.
Yeah.
Correct. Exactly.
Well, I think Joe sent you our first time guest questions if you are ready for those.
Absolutely.
All right. The first one is either really easy or really hard. Why do you love Trek?
All right. So most people know this. I did not grow up with Star Trek. I just barely started watching it 4 years ago. And what got me to watch it was not actually Beverly Crusher, but my husband's a huge fan. And he's been trying to get me to watch it for years. And when I bought him the Blu-rays for Christmas, he started rewatching it. And it was Data and O'Brien that caught my attention because I was like, that was kind of funny. Just the little sarcasm here and there. But when I decided to finally watch it, yes, it was Beverly Crusher I ended up falling in love with. But there was just something about the show that I enjoyed. And when I started learning more about Gene Roddenberry's vision and hope for the future and all that stuff, that intrigued me a lot. So I love that message that he had. I mean, it hasn't been perfect over the last 60 years, but that vision that he's had is still present today. And I know even with current showrunners and fans, they're still trying to keep that going. And so that's the biggest thing that I like about Trek. And Beverly Crusher.
Awesome. Love that. And moving to the next, I'll be interested to hear this. So home base crew, who would be your home base crew? Or all these questions are kind of interpretable. So maybe it's like your comfort food show, or like which ship would you want to be on? Maybe those are all different questions. You don't have to answer all of them. It's just sort of prompting something.
No, I mean, again, too easy. It was the Next Generation, since that's what got me into it, with Beverly and Picard and the Enterprise D, and just that crew in itself, I think, was just, the actors, like LeVar said, lightning in a bottle. They just really worked well together. Not that the other cast members of other shows didn't, but there was just something about this core 7, 8, and 9, with Wesley and Tasha. It was just really good. And you can just watch it and you can have it in the background. And yeah, it's a comfort show where you could just always just be like, oh, like this episode, or I hate this episode, but I'm gonna watch it anyways. But of current Trek, I would have to say Prodigy.
Yes.
As you know, I love TNG, and Prodigy has a lot of that TNG vibe, and I think it really honors Trek in the best way.
Yeah.
So those would be my two top favorites out of all of them. And they brought Wesley back, so I can't complain.
Yes. Thank you, Prodigy. Okay.
Yes.
And our last question, and maybe we already can guess the answer to this, or maybe it'll surprise us. But if you could go on a date with a character, and it could be romantic or it can not be, it could be just more like catching up with somebody over coffee. It doesn't have to have a romantic element. If you could go on a date with a character, who would it be?
So I know everyone's gonna be like Beverly Crusher, which she's up there. But I really wanted to highlight Jadzia Dax.
Oh, yes.
Mm.
Love Jadzia. When I started watching TNG, you know, fun fact, I binged it in 2.5 weeks.
Amazing.
Wow.
So I and then I just rewatched it again. Um, so I decided to go into the other shows, the DS9, Voyager. My husband had never watched the other shows, so
Oh,
because I started watching it, it got him to watch it, and he loves DS9 and Voyager. He didn't get into Enterprise, but he started watching the other shows. It's fine. But there was something about Jadzia that I just love so much, and I love the relationship she had with Cisco.
yes.
Just that friendship, him calling her old man, and she, the advice she would give him, even though technically she's younger than he is, but she's not. Like it's just this, this whole complex thing, but it's such a beautiful story. I don't like how it ended, but
Yeah.
her character just highlights so much again of what Trek is all about, just like I say about Beverly. And so yeah, and I think Terry Farrell just did an amazing job. I love what they did with the Trill versus what we got in TNG. So I think they fixed
True.
it in that aspect.
Mhm.
But yeah, Jadzia Dax is definitely in my top three favorite female characters, or just characters overall of Trek.
Yeah. Love Jadzia also. Thank you for answering those. They're always so fun to hear all of the
Yeah,
different
great answers.
perspectives. And yeah, I
Yeah.
love the story of you and your husband, how like he kind of brought you to TNG and then you brought him to everything else, and just sort of the back and forth. I love that.
Well, it's funny because the last time we were at STLV, I decided to go to Garrett Wong's table. And if you don't know about Garrett, he loves to talk to everyone, and he'll try to talk to you for like a good 5 minutes,
Mhm.
even though he has a long line. He really tries to take the time with you. And when I told him that, my husband always just kind of like stands in the corner because he's like, this is your moment. I'm just going to wait over here. When I mentioned that to him, he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then he saw my husband. He's like, you get over here.
Aw.
And I'm like, okay. He's like, let me get this straight. And I was like, yeah, this is how we got into Trek. He's like, this is amazing. And so, yeah, I think everyone just has their unique stories about how Trek entered their lives, whether it was their parents or even a friend or later in life, like it was for me. But my husband, he saw it when he was little. He remembers when Beverly Crusher was gone in season 2, and he talks about how he did not like that. Uh, even as a 5-year-old. And, but those were episodes he got to see with his dad, and how it made him feel as a kid, because I don't know if anyone remembers in the 90s, you were supposed to be either Trek or Star Wars. You couldn't
Mm.
be both. So he felt kind of weird that he liked both. So he was like, I'm a closet Trekkie, Star Wars all the way.
Aw.
And then when finally he was like, oh, I could love both. Screw this, because I didn't care. Um, it just brought in our interests that we always had. Like we both love Star Wars. I grew up with Star Wars. We both love video games, all that stuff. And yeah, and again, it opened up the world of Trek to him than just being a 7 season, TNG and that's it. Or even just Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, because everyone knows them, obviously. But
Mhm.
it was it he ended up loving Deep Space Nine, I have to say. That I think it almost knocked TNG off its pedestal,
Hmm.
but he has, of course, just an affinity love for it just because that's what he grew up on. But yeah, it was very interesting. We had more things to talk about
Yeah, I
than
love
just
that.
TNG.
It's great.
Yeah.
Could you tell any listeners maybe who haven't heard of your show, the Crusher Convo, just give us a little like outline of what that is?
Yeah, so Crusher Convo is a podcast where I deep dive all of Star Trek through the eyes of Dr. Beverly Crusher. And I think her character is unique in her own way, and I think she represents the best qualities of Trek. And so I like to kind of, in a sense, pick her brain a little bit in certain situations, like what would Beverly do in Tuvix, or,
Hmm.
what if she
Mm.
was in season two and handled these situations versus Pulaski, and would Pulaski and her be friends? And I think she would. Um, just to kind of broaden the conversation because there's so much Trek, 900 plus episodes, 950, whatever. I'm still on my Trek journey. I'm almost done. But there is just so much to talk about, even little moments or, and I'm gonna bring this up later. And there's like this one moment in Best of Both Worlds where, they see Picard as Locutus, and she just steps forward and Data holds her back. It's a moment. It's a very small little moment. Blink and you miss it. But those are the moments that really heighten the scene, which really
Mm.
brings out that emotional depth in these episodes. Like you could just watch it for the fun and the action and, Worf saying, good tea, nice house, and being funny or whatever. But there's these little moments that you catch that can really bring out the best that you didn't realize before. And that's what I like to highlight. And I also like to highlight people's stories because, like I said, a lot of people grew up with Trek differently, or they saw Beverly as like a mom figure because they didn't have one, or they decided to go into STEM because of Beverly or
Mm.
Janeway or even Seven of Nine. So I like those kind of stories because I grew up with Xena in the 90s, and
Mhm.
Xena was very impactful for me. And there was a time in my life where it wasn't great, and she was kind of the character that I gravitated towards as comfort. And so I like to share those because I think those are important. I'm a huge mental health activist, and when it comes to talking about your guys' stories and talking about how your feelings are valid and all that stuff, and we shouldn't shy away from, you know, it's okay to be sad, it's okay to have these feelings, but talk about it. And Trek kind of meets those standards and open up to, like, oh yeah, I felt like this when I was little and this is why. And now as they're an adult, they can, take that and run with it in a certain way. And so that's why I like to share those stories. But it's just amazing what you can really, when you peel back the onions,
Yeah.
all these episodes are just different when you start talking about it, especially with different perspectives from different people. So that's where the crushing the conversation comes about. Is just one episode at a time, crushing the conversation one episode at a time, and just hearing the different aspects for Trek.
Yeah, that's well said. It's a cool show. I mean, if anyone listening hasn't checked it out, I would highly recommend it. And you also you talk to fans, you talk to other like podcasters as well, just like similar to kind of what we do. Like I think it's that building that community is a really like fun and special aspect of kind of like having a Star Trek podcast. But you've also talked to some of the actors, right? Like you did talk to Gates McFadden on your podcast, which is pretty cool.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it was a full circle moment. And of course, her podcast was coming out, and
Mm.
she's supposed to be doing X-Men 97, which is finally being released. And so it's been an honor, to say the least, that I've been able to talk to these showrunners and actors and hearing a little bit of their story. Um, and even just, like when I talked to Gates, we did talk about her thoughts about Beverly and Picard season three and why she, performed the way she did. And again, when you hear those stories, then you go back and you look at it and now you see it a little differently. But it's just been an honor. Like I think, talking to Aaron Walke and Mike McMahon, I just talked to Doug Drexler.
Mm.
I've talked to Kitty Swink a couple of times. I've had Armin on my show. It's just been great. And even background actors. Like I've had Olivia Youngers, or I had uh let me see if I could remember, Duncan Fraser, who was a background character on Enterprise,
Ah.
and hearing his story about how different it is for background actors versus like,
Yeah.
the leads on the call sheet. Love it. I love those stories. I eat those up like crazy. And it's this, I hear this all the time, and it's so true when it comes to editors and musics and the lighting and like the whole in front of the camera and behind the camera all make this happen. It's not just the actors.
Mhm.
And so I like hearing those kind of stories.
Agreed. Yeah, that's a super cool element to it. And it's fun to hear, like, especially like folks who were background actors or even just like had small bit roles are just like still super stoked to talk about Star Trek, which is kind of a testament to generally, hopefully, what you hear positive experiences with
Yeah,
the
Yeah.
I
shows that we
think
love.
so. I
Yeah.
mean, there's no 100% perfect rule
Yeah.
for like anything in life, right? But you can't please everybody truly.
Totally.
But I think Trek seems to please a lot of people.
It does.
So
Uh,
Yes.
so
Till Academy came out, that was rough. I enjoyed Academy, by the
same,
way.
same.
Loved
yes.
it. Loved
Yeah.
Mhm.
Academy. But man, I got those were not fun comments to be scrolling through
It
when
got
that
it got
happened.
pretty weird. Yeah. Yeah.
A
Weird.
little bit.
Fortunately. Unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we are going to be digging into this Beverly Picard relationship. Before we do that, I
Mhm.
have a segment I like to do just really quick called Trek Check, in which we just dig into a few like news items in the Star Trek world. Not a whole lot of major news right now, just like a couple like dates that are dropped. Like Strange New Worlds season 4 is expected to come out July 23rd. Star Trek Celebrations 2026, the one-shot anthology comic centered on like LGBTQI plus folks and creators just dropped in the beginning of June here to coincide with Pride Month. I'm
Mhm.
really excited to pick that up. There's a new comic coming out in July, a sequel to the Red Shirts comic, which I kind of praised previously by Christopher Cantwell. There's a new one called Ghosts of the 21st Century, set during the TOS movie era. And this will be written by, I don't have the author of this one, but I'll look it up and probably put it in the notes. But I'm excited. I'm still excited to see that kind of comic continue. But the kind of more, the big news that I thought was sort of like big is relative, but it was kind of an interesting like new thing for Star Trek was the announcement of the new web comics that just dropped in Webtoons, which is sort of an online web comic app that kind of scrolls upward or is vertical so you can read it on your phone. And so they just announced two well, they announced I think last year, but they gave the details and one of them was officially released. The first one is Stargazers, which written by Jarrett Melendez, kind of a YA like queer forward romance series set aboard DS9 post the Dominion War. If you get Webtoon, you can read the first 3 issues for free, and then I think you have to pay for the rest. So I've read the first 3 so far. It's pretty cool. And then there's a second one coming out called Recollection, written by Sam Maggs. That's about a young woman who awakens with no memory of who she is, how she got there, only to discover 6 other folks in the same situation, and that they are among the Federation's most wanted, bound for a re-education facility. So those are coming out. Those are one's out, one's coming out, and in the press release, they're labeled "quote unquote" canon, which I don't know necessarily what that means anymore in a franchise this big. It's kind of like tends to be what people think of it as their own, but that's what the
Mhm.
release said, and I think that's interesting. And I don't know if that means that there's like a kind of an experiment to say like maybe those are characters we're going to play with in future properties or something. But it's just kind of a different like sandbox for Trek, and I think it's kind of an exciting like area for it to be. The writers have been posting on their social media sites, and it's been really exciting to see how excited they are to be part of Star Trek. And so I thought that was just kind of a fun, unique piece of new Star Trek to kind of look forward to, given that we don't have a whole lot on the show front, I'd say.
Thanks for sharing, Joe.
Yeah, yeah, that's our Trek check for now.
Computer, status report.
What the hell was that?
Anyway, let's dig into our topic at hand. We are talking about the Beverly Crusher Jean-Luc Picard relationship, and it's kind of a really interesting one. I mean, all of them are interesting, but this one is really interesting because it really spans the entire time that these two characters have been on screen. Like
That's
from the beginning at Encounter at Farpoint through All Good Things, through Star Trek Picard season 3, The Last Generation, where we've really last seen them. So it's a really interesting, I mean, I guess you could kind of say will they, won't they at times, relationship. And Jesse, this is kind of where I want to turn to you. You sent us a really phenomenal list of episodes that specifically TNG focused that kind of bring us through some important moments in their relationship. We end up rewatching two of them specifically in preparation for this, ones that we didn't remember as well. And that was the season one episode, Arsenal of Freedom, and the season seven episode, Attached. Because some of the other ones we're way more familiar with, like have rewatched many times. But those two stuck out. I was like, I think we definitely need to revisit those
Mhm.
ones. But would you want to maybe just give a little tiny taste of like your list and like why some of the highlight moments that you sent us?
Okay, so yes, I gave you a list of, and again, not all of it because I was like, I don't want to overwhelm you. And like you said, a counter at Farpoint, The Naked Now, The Big Goodbye, Arsenal of Freedom, Allegiance, Sarek, The High Ground, Best of Both Worlds, which I had mentioned a little bit
Yep.
earlier, Remember Me, The Hose, Cause and Effect, Lessons, Attached, Sub Rosa, and All Good Things. Um, the again, each episode, either it's right in your face of like, oh, there's tension or something, like we saw in A Counter at Farpoint, or even The Naked Now. That was right in your face of some flirting going on. But just in, Sarek, for instance, which was in season three. And of course, everyone knows Picard had to have a mind meld in order to, stabilize Sarek's mind. So he was more logical and he was overcome with emotion. And there's the ending scene of where Picard is so distraught and it's hard for him to handle it. And he breaks down and all she does is just hold him. And it's a very special moment where she's there for him and she's comforting him. And even though she went there as a doctor, she ended up just being there as his friend.
Mhm.
And it's those just moments that you just go like, oh, there's that will they, won't they situation. But then again, even in, like I said, Best of Both Worlds, when she sees him as Locutus, she just does this one little step forward trying to go to him, and Data has to hold her back. And it's so quick, but it's a so important moment because she's in shock. She knows that's not Picard, but I have to help him. Like that was her instinct to do that. Um, and of course, even well, lessons I mentioned, of course, that's when Nella Darren, he started dating that science officer. Um, but there's a couple of moments where Beverly notices Picard is kind of interested in her, and she kind of just gives him a look, and she's like, and then she walks away. Or even when Nella asks about Picard, you could tell how hurt she is by it. So those are just the moments that I like to highlight. And obviously, you saw Arsenal Freedom and Attached, which Arsenal Freedom doesn't really have a lot of the romantic aspect, but because she was injured and he had to try and take care of her. But shout out to my friend Jay, who always cracks up about how does a captain not know first aid? Um, he's just like, I don't know what's going on here, but Picard is doing horribly. Uh, But even at this moment of where he's all like, "Oh, there's probably a lot about you I don't know," and she says, "Quite a few," you
Yeah.
know,
Yep.
and it's those moments where you're like, "Oh, gut punch," you know. Now attached, that's another throw in your face of like, "Oh,
Oh yeah.
you loved me. Why didn't you say anything?" And there's always a conflict with fans because some are like, "Kudos to Beverly for standing her ground and not." Going forward with Picard. And then others are like, why? And I first was like that. I was like, why'd she leave? Why would she do that? But after a while, when I was really like paying attention to the episode, there's that moment at the fire scene. She is asking him, why didn't you tell me you were in love with me? And of course, he explains, but then he goes, I don't have those feelings anymore. A lot could happen in 20 years. Now, again, they're attached. And I think he forgot for a second. Or maybe he was trying to just put up the walls and like pretend. But I think she sensed that. And then she made the joke later that he had some dreams that she
Yeah.
saw.
Mhm.
And I think that, and your subconscious will really showcase how you're feeling. And so I think she knew that he was trying to still hide his feelings for her. So when all of a sudden he decided, hey, let's give this a shot, she's like, you're not ready. I don't want to put my heart out there when you try to just put up that wall again. I don't want to have to deal with that. And I think Picard had this moment of like, oh crap. And I think that's when he, when she pushed him through the force field, you could see that look of despair on his face, like, oh, I might lose her. Crap. And they're probably telepathically speaking to each other at this point. We don't know. But that's why he was like, well, if we have feelings, let's go for it. And she's just like, no, because she just want to get hurt. And she also doesn't want to, him to have to pretend or change his mind. Like, I think she just had all these questions. And that's why she says we should be afraid. So that I think was important. But I mentioned Sub Rosa, as everyone calls it, the sex ghost episode. I don't see that. It's actually, and I defend Sub Rosa, and I will to the day I die. But when you really watch it, you realize, no, he's not a ghost. No, it was never sex. And the thing is this alien manipulated her because he was just trying to survive, or it was trying to survive. And so he was feeding off of her energy, feeding off the energy of all the women in her family to survive, that he pretended to be a ghost, that he pretended he was in love, and that it was like a sexual encounter. Now, to her it was, but not to Ronan. But this is only 6 episodes after Attached. So she's still kind of vulnerable at this moment. So again, fans are like, how did she get easily manipulated? Well, because her guard was down. She was still hurt. She was probably questioning herself. There's all these what if moments. And so it was easy for her to get wrapped up into Ronan's, energy and all that, and become addicted to his energy, because what we were seeing was more of an addiction and an addict than arousal. But the moment Ronan hurt Picard, she snapped out of it. And there's a part in the script that actually says, when she fights off Ronan and Ronan takes off, it says a wave of nausea takes over her, like if she's withdrawing from a drug. And those particular moments where she's like, she's like an addict, needed his next fix. She's on like having a high of a narcotic, like all these different things. So it's not a love story when you're reading these little descriptions. But that moment, she's like, please, please, please. Like, she's trying to save him because she's like, oh my gosh, now circling back to Arsenal of Freedom, where he was like, oh my gosh, you almost died. Now it might turn around and she's going to be like, oh my gosh, I could have told him I loved him and I didn't, and I'm about to lose him. So again, it's these moments, and even after Sub Rosa, you kind of see them kind of being cute and flirtatious in just little ways. But then we get all good things. So they always just wanted to keep us on the edge of our seat, but they just never wanted to commit. And I'm talking about the writers, or even just production. I don't know. I mean, Gates even says maybe Patrick had a say in it and he just didn't want to be. Who knows what the thought process was back then? But I mean, at least we got something out of all good things, them being married, but then they divorced. So it was like, okay, great. So you still can't even give us the apple. Like, you're just like, here's the apple, but we're taking it away. It just kind of sucks. And I'm kind of glad you didn't mention the movies, because nothing happened.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. It just feels like the movies just completely forget it as even a thing.
Yeah. What movies? Right. I mean, Gates speaks to Joe. She's like, was I even in those movies? Because they just did not do her character justice at all. Like, but then you get season 3 of Picard, and it's a whole different aspect.
It really is.
It's the stuff that we wanted to see. And even that moment in sick bay when they're fighting, I loved it. I was like, this is what I'm talking about, because they were almost too polite throughout TNG. They were like hurting and had feelings. I mean, he even had a little bit of a when it came to Odan and the host. Yeah. But when it came to them just being angry at each other, I thought that was a really good aspect to that relationship of just, that's 50 years of hardship and friendship and pain and love and just all out on the table. I mean, I think Patrick even said that they were just like naked emotionally in that moment, which I love that idea of it. And Beverly just standing her ground. I don't think she wanted to keep her son away from him, but she felt like she didn't have a choice. So, I always say this, and I quote from the salon, I believe it was Stan or Trev, but it was just, she did the wrong thing for the right reasons, right? So, because she just went through so much with Picard that she just couldn't lose anymore at that point. So it's a complicated relationship.
It's very complicated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You said
Very
interesting.
complicated.
Complicated is
Yeah.
really good.
That was, yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we
Five
also
times.
5 times. Yeah. We also did rewatch those couple episodes of Picard before this. There was 17 Seconds and No Win Scenario, that kind of little duology there. And that scene in sick bay, like you're talking about, it's such an interesting scene. And I feel like we talked about this too, but I really love the way it's shot. And I think like when you kind of bring up this naked emotion with it, like it's also the fact that it's directed by Frakes, I think adds another thing, because he also just like knows these characters so well. And there's that connection and with the camera as well, but like the way that it's presented where they're so far away from each other, and like as the conversation gets more and more heated, like it's closer and closer and closer and more intimate, like just like the camera angles of it too, and like they're framed separately and then they're framed together, and the passion, it's an incredibly well acted and just composed sequence in general. And it's hard to watch because there are moments that I'm just like, that makes me uncomfortable and sad, but
Yeah.
it's
No
super
one
well
wants
done.
to watch mom and dad fight.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
how it feels.
that's well put. But yeah, and I even going back to what you were saying too about sort of the like jealousy or feelings that Beverly had, I think during lessons. I think that to Sub Rosa, there's a little bit of that with Picard. On the other hand of it, it's like she's like what's going on here, and even like him being willing to go down to the planet and be like, this isn't right. I got to stop this. I got to put stop to this. Like there's kind of that like that relationship is really tugging at him. It's super. We did an episode on Sub Rosa too.
It's not, I
was
can't lose my chief medical officer. It's I can't lose Beverly.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's right. You did say that.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
No, it's perfect. Yeah.
it's very cool. I did want to circle back to the first one that we watched Arsenal of Freedom. I think that's just an interesting. It was interesting for us to kind of watch a season 1, a season 7, and then Picard, because they're just
Interesting jump.
the eras. Like they're just so like
Big
Arsenal
difference.
of Freedom it kind of feels like a cheesy 80s movie, like
It felt like a TOS episode,
a
honestly.
little bit, yeah. And like,
Yeah.
well, also you had
I say that with love, by the way,
No.
but it's just that the era.
they also had Vincent Schiavelli, that the guy as like a guest actor. He's like an 80s character guy, and like him being
Yeah.
this weapons salesman. I love that. Like that's being like an 80s like horror fan, like seeing like character actors like that pop up in those kinds of roles, it warms my heart a little bit. So like he was a fun element, but like that episode's so interesting because aside from the relationship piece, like they're there to investigate that like missing ship, and then they find the planet that's destroyed themselves from like being capitalist arms dealers, and the missing ship element is just like forgotten by me.
Shrug.
And they're just like, all right, we're done. We saved each other. But then the whole crux of it is Beverly and Picard down in the caves, and you mentioned the line where she's like, there's quite a few things you don't know about me. I did see that there was an effort made by some of the writers that they wanted there to be like a full-on like confession there, but they were sort of prevented from doing so. Have you heard about that?
I sure have. And it's so funny because the one who wrote that episode and the one who wanted Beverly to admit her feelings was Maurice Hurley,
That's what I thought. Yeah, Maurice Hurley.
who is the one that fired Kate in season
That's right.
2. So I was like, that's ironic, but it was Gene that stopped it. He didn't want it to, and granted, let's and I'm gonna throw X-Files here for a quick second. Like, you don't want Scully and Mulder all of a sudden have a relationship in season 1. You want that to build, right? You want that to, and it's the same thing. You don't want to just put everything out on the table, which is probably why they didn't like go far in the Naked Now, but they wanted to be playful with
Yeah.
it, with their flirtation and stuff. but it was just interesting how they were flirtatious to each other versus anybody else. But for that moment, yeah, it and I don't know if I would have wanted her to confess her feelings. I think yes, it would have been too soon, but I think just her saying quite a few wasn't enough. So I think they could have done a little bit more without having to go like all the way, you know. Um, and just maybe even get Picard to kind of, because I feel like he was very oblivious in our
Oh yeah.
Soviet freedom, right? I mean, he was on a mission. I get it. He's trying to keep her alive. He's trying to figure out what's going on with this, weaponry stuff. He doesn't know where his crew is. Like he's dealing with a lot, granted, but she's just like, I just need to stay awake, and this is I just have to lay here. Um, but I think there would have been a nice touch if there might have been another line thrown in for him to be like, give that look of like, oh, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
just a little extra, but nothing to like again, we don't need the whole apple. You could just give us a little bite and we'll be fine. Um, and then she got fired. So that that sucked. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's primarily that moment in that episode. But like you said, it's an important moment.
Yeah.
There's so much more of that episode that's dealing with the weapon stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot
Yeah.
that's sped through, it feels like, for kind of the moral piece. But I mean, it's ultimately it's an illustration of like their closeness to like their connection there, and like just having
yeah,
those two playing off each other. What did you say? You looked up something weird about the sand. What was it that you said?
I feel like it
It was
was
bugs or something, right?
There
fleas or
was.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was like
So
filled with
that
fleas. So it was very the two actors probably hated shooting. I think they did hate shooting this episode because apparently they got fleas from it or something.
Gross.
Ugh.
they used to call that stage like the mountain of hell or something like that, because what it would happen is, yeah, that's a bunch of dirt or something that they threw in there, and stray cats would use it as a
Uh,
litter box
Ugh.
and
ew.
be in there. And so yes, there were
Mm.
bugs and fleas, and she's in it. Like she is
Yeah, she is.
in the dirt. So not great. But like you said, it's kind of has that TOS feel because they were on a budget.
Yeah.
And yeah, but yeah, knowing those little bits, and I'm like, wow, these are professionals, because you would not have been. She says she got bit. Like she got bit
Oh,
by bugs. So she's a pro.
oh yeah.
So comparing that episode to
Attached.
Attached later on that we
Yeah.
kind of also rewatched,
They're almost like
they're
sides of a coin.
they really are. It's like similar because like instead of stuck in a cave, they're kind of imprisoned together. And then this is when we sort of finally get the admission. This episode, comparatively between the two, is I just feel like it's a generally a tighter episode. Like I'm not saying I don't love Arsenal of Freedom. I love the very cheesy 80s elements of it, but like this does feel like I'm kind of a more kind of complete story where the B story is also kind of firing and like has a full arc.
Yeah.
Like the Riker stuff was pretty interesting. I thought like him having to like deal with this these two sides of this planet, one that doesn't want to be part of it, one that does, and the fact that they're both just incredibly paranoid. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But
And so
yeah,
the Frakes episode.
it's another Frakes episode. Yeah,
That's why we love
Yeah.
it.
he
Yeah.
he does a lot of good ones, but um, I do think I think that this one did bring us a lot of really good moments. It's um, we were reading some like thoughts about it after watching it, and like you were kind of I think you kind of brought me a little bit around on it too, because I feel like a lot of people were like, it feels unsatisfying after all of that, and then just to end it, and then not a whole lot to go forward from that until
Mhm.
like Picard season 3, and even then like the implication that is so much happens off screen, which is kind of a bummer.
Right.
Like we don't
Yeah.
get these relationship moments. We don't get that. But
Yeah, they're just talking about the apple that we never got.
yeah,
And now it's
Yeah,
eaten up.
exactly.
exactly.
Yeah.
To go back to your analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard for them. Like it's hard for the actors and the writers too, the newer ones too, especially to be like, we gotta do the exposition, but we also have to have the story now and the drama. It's a lot of work that they had to pull off, and so but I think Attached was a pretty good. What do you guys think? Attached was a good episode, I thought.
Yeah, and it takes the sci-fi element also, I think, where it's like, okay, the sci-fi concept is they've somehow become psychically linked in this prison, and it was also interesting that there was the physical like closeness associated with it
Oh, that's right.
too.
They couldn't move away from each other.
It
Yeah.
could have,
Yeah.
yeah, it was an interesting element to add to it. Um, yeah, do you have thoughts about that, Jesse?
No, I do. And so just kind of like what you said about the two sides of a coin, right? Between Arsenal Freedom and then Attached. This just kind of shows how much they've grown as a friendship over the last 7 years. So
Hmm.
as much as like in that first season, Picard really had his guard up because he felt a little, oh, I don't want my feelings to be shown, and I still have feelings for her, even though it's been 10 years and whatever. But even when she left to go to, you know, medical, Starfleet medical, whatever, he was sad about it. You can kind of see those moments where he was really bummed when he was talking to Wesley. But then they just gone through so much. And so by this time, they're able to be snarky to each other or funny or even a little, snap at each other. Like she was mentioning about her grandmother's soup, and he was like, Beverly, because he was, so he's like, you're making me hungry and you need to stop. And he wouldn't have done that in season one, right? So that just showed how much the relationship had grown over that time. But yes, them having to be literally attached to each other and not being able to let go, I think they were forced to bring those walls down. And that was a vulnerability I don't think either one of them was ready for. But what I find interesting when she goes, because she mentions Jack, he gets that rush of guilt, obviously, as she catches it. And then she says, why didn't you ever tell me you were in love with me? And he goes, um, I mean, basically, he was all like, how did you not know? Because he probably kept his distance. There was probably moments of where he was like, I'm surprised you didn't figure it out. But she had her own wall up because she didn't want him to know that she had feelings, right? So this was just a really good time to for them, these two characters, to finally just lay it all out and see what happens. But like I said earlier, Picard just could not do it and kept that wall up even more, even though she could sense his feelings. And I want to circle back to Frakes. If you ever pay attention to any of the 8 episodes that Frakes does in TNG, 4 of them are pretty Beverly heavy. So there's obviously Attached, Sub Rosa, Cause and Effect, and I throw in the Chase in there because she was really important to help Picard with his archaeology journey. That's when she has like her leg up, she's laying back, she's relaxed, and I feel she's trusting Frakes with whatever he's doing, and he's trusting them. Just like, you guys do you, you got this. I don't have to tell you anything, because you guys have heard this. They always were saying like we had to go by the script. There was no way we could ad lib. There was no way we can add there was nothing. They couldn't change anything. They were kind of caught in this little box. But with Frakes, I think they were just able to just relax and just do their thing. And that's why when you see them in like 17 seconds, he was just like, go do it. I'll be over here. Just let me know when you're done. you know? And that's what made it so good. He just let them do their job. And I always call them Frakes and Gates episodes because they're probably the most amazing performances that Gates has done, because I think she felt so comfortable around him. And that's where you feel that emotional impact as well.
Very true. Another moment that sticks out to me in Attached is when they're discussing their breakfast routine, and they both kind of realize, because she's making the breakfast and she's kind of going above and beyond. And then they have this discussion where she senses, or whatever, it comes out, like it's forced to come out that he doesn't really want that. And he's like,
Mhm.
I just want a croissant and coffee. And she's like, well, I guess I was doing it for you. Like, that's what I would want. And So it's an interesting little mirror to kind of the relationship as a whole and kind of what comes out in that whole conversation at the end about
Yeah.
their feelings for each other, where like it's sort of like they're kind of, I don't know, not necessarily doing it, putting their walls up. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I had it there, but it sort of seems like a little microcosm of that where kind of like baby communication or more like upfront communication could have assisted them, and like breakfast is like a little inconsequential thing that they could have maybe both enjoyed more if they would have maybe communicated.
And I'm going to highlight that just a little bit since you were saying about the ending, that yes, she was trying to be more elaborate with the breakfast because she thought that's what he would like, when in reality, and he was just accepting it and with a smile, even though he hated it, he was doing that for her, right? Thinking that that's what she wanted. But in the end, if they had communicated a little bit better, like she said, why didn't you tell me you were in love with me? But in that last scene when he was like, let's give this a go, he's already assuming this is what she wants, and
Hmm.
she's already assuming he's not ready.
Mhm.
You said that way better than I did. Thank you.
I felt like I was like, I think I know where she's going. I'm going to help her out.
Yes.
But I mean, but it does mirror like something as simple as the breakfast was exactly mirroring their lack of communication. And she did that thinking that's going to be best for him. It may not have been best for her, but she's like, I'm doing him a favor. And then he's thinking, well, then she doesn't really want it, So
Hmm.
these two just did not talk. Clearly, if there was 5 times a relationship, I'm gonna hold my composure a little bit. But when he did mention that in 17 seconds, and she was all like, we ended our relationship. He's like, our romantic relationship for the 5th time. I'm like, excuse me?
Yep. I had the same reaction. Yeah.
Like, five? How did that? I'm like, for one, when was the five? So I'm thinking, I'm like, all right, so between the end of TNG to Generations, between Generations and
I
First
know.
Contact, the parts that we don't see, right?
Hmm.
Oh yeah, they're just
So
off in the movies. That's the
there's
off
just,
times.
yeah, right in between the movies.
Very
Which is
convenient.
why hate. I'm gonna be Mrs. White right now. Flames on the side of my face. Hate insurrection.
Uh-huh.
Because we didn't get any of this Beverly Picard stuff. We got it in the finale of the series, but not in the movies. And all of a sudden, he's hooking up with some chick from Baku. Thank you, Captain Shaw, for mentioning that. I was like,
Oh
score.
yeah.
Because it's true. I was all, and she's watching this, and apparently this is in between their relationships, and so now I'm forever hate that movie. But um, it just and clearly, like everyone has different opinions. I'm more on Beverly's side. Some people are more on Picard's side, and that's fine. But they're really both flawed people.
Yeah.
They
Like
really
they
are.
both have their faults. It's not one who's better than the other. They both screwed up,
Totally.
whether it's communication, whatever. So, I'm here to confess that Beverly ain't perfect, but if I'm gonna have to, pick a side, it's she's obviously it. But they just continued that on with season 3. So it's frustrating as fans because even we didn't. I don't know if you noticed. If you want to do a whole rewatch, they don't ever touch each other.
Really?
Hmm.
There's not a hug. There's not a hand. Nothing.
Huh.
Nothing. And I'm hoping it's the editing, and it just landed that way. But I think her guard was still up. Like Gates or Beverly, like she always had her arms crossed. And I think that was kind of the character just still having her guard up because she sacrificed so much to protect their son. But she also felt guilty at the same time. And here's Picard having to deal with the whole, revelation of everything that's going on. But they never connected in any way.
Yeah.
But they like sat next to each other at the poker scene, or,
Yeah.
they hugged their son together. Like we had moments, but it wasn't anything, you know, jaw dropping. I think the only thing we got up close is when he forgave her, and that was emotionally moment for her because she was forgiven and she clearly was holding a lot of guilt over the last 20 plus years. But, you know, season 3 is not perfect, but it was better than what we got in the next generation.
Yeah.
So thank you, Terry.
Very least addressing it at the very least. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
It was
Exactly.
it's there. Yeah.
I did pick up on the fact in that, at least in 17 seconds in that episode, and particularly in that scene in sick bay, I did, because I was actually like, the first time we were watching it, this was like our second time, I think, or third time watching it. And, there's the back and forth. And like, even though she feels guilty, she's standing by, she's like, there's no apology, there's no I'm sorry. And like, even in like typical, like kind of human conversations, I feel like we like slip it out. And I feel like it was a very specific choice in the writing and or, whoever's decision, how many people that made that decision. But I was like, she does not apologize. At least in that
Right.
In that scene,
episode.
yeah.
I can't remember if perhaps like in the
She,
forgiving moment, if there was that, or if it was just.
So I think she was going to, because I mean, again, at 17 seconds, they barely just saw each other after all these years, and he's pissed, and she's
Yeah.
defending herself, right? And there's even a moment, I like it when he says, what could have I been? And he said, a father, a husband, and she shoots him a look like, seriously?
Yeah, that's a good look.
Then you would have married me because you knocked me up. That's cool. Thanks. Because I don't think she felt like she was worthy enough of him. Obviously, she knew he loved his career. He loved being a captain. He became an admiral. He loved helping people. But she was never really on top of that list, hence the 5 times, And she clearly was making the decision that this was going to be it, but then she ended up getting pregnant. But then every time she tried to tell him, something life-threatening was happening. And I think it was just too much. This was literally in like a couple of weeks span where she's trying to tell him she's pregnant and he's been abducted, got kidnapped, and then phaser to the head, and then bomb goes off. Like she couldn't do it. She couldn't handle it, and she's like, I'm out. But by that ending, in the 10th episode, when she knows he's down in the cube, she knows there's a possibility that she's never going to speak to him again. She starts going, Jean-Luc. She starts to say, and he stops her. And that's when he was like, Beverly, you thought of Jack from the beginning, shielding him from danger. You did everything right. So I think that was where he was like, you don't need to apologize. I understand now, because he's seeing everything she sacrificed over these last few episodes and everything that they were trying to do to get Jack, because he was Picard's son, because he was the son of Locutus. So he was like, oh, now I get it, But he was willing to sacrifice himself to protect their son or try to save him. So that was a noble thing on his part to be like, you protected him this long, let me bring him home. Like he's making that effort, and she's allowing it, because I think that's all she ever wanted. She didn't want to keep Jack away from him. She wanted to be a family with Picard. I just don't think that she thought he was capable to do it. So, but again, it goes back to that lack of communication, because maybe he would have been fine with it.
I was going to ask,
not being a captain.
his line about you never gave me like the choice.
Right. Because he's like, you don't know.
Or you made the choice for me, or something along those lines.
Yeah. Yeah. Right back to them thinking that they're having elaborate breakfast when the other one does not care.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I really like
it's just that.
your outlining of this arc throughout the season 3, because there's so much going on in season 3. So sometimes like it's hard to be like to pinpoint that specific like arc as it's going through. But like I feel like you've enunciated very, very clearly for all of us. But
It's not like I haven't seen these episodes 5, 10, 15 times.
oh,
It's
I know.
fine.
Yeah, it's great.
It's compelling
It
too.
is very
I mean,
compelling.
like, yeah, we didn't really mean to start watching the next one, and then I was like, but wait,
No, when we were watching 17 seconds, 17 seconds is such a hard. Okay, so it's a hard episode because I feel like everyone's kind of being icky to everybody. That's the one that ends with like,
he's so
I
upset
hate
that
when Riker's like, "You've killed us all." I'm like, what? That's so mean. But also Picard was being a jerk. I don't
Well, I
know.
mean, in Riker's defense, he was going through a lot.
Totally.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
and again, it goes back to to just that, Beverly made this bad decision for the
Yeah.
right reason because she couldn't lose anymore. She's seeing all this danger. She couldn't lose anymore. She made up this bad decision because she's already emotionally just spent. Riker was emotionally
Oh
spent.
yeah.
Okay. He's still going over the loss of his son. He's going over the fact that him and Deanna have not been close because of these issues. And
Mhm.
he ran away. And so, yeah, he can't take it out on himself. He can't take it out on Deanna. He's gonna take it out on Picard
Yeah.
because Picard was being a jerk. So these are broken characters. Every single one of them has some sad story. The only one that really didn't have that sad of a story, I would say, is Geordi up until his mom died in
Hmm.
TNG, but he had both of his parents. He had a sister. He was bad at having a girlfriend. Like he was all right.
Yeah.
Um, but like Worf was an orphan, Beverly was an orphan, Picard, that's a whole can of worms right
Oh
there.
yeah.
His mom and his dad and all that.
He loses his
And then
brother in
brother and
generations.
the
Yeah. The
fire. Like,
yeah.
come on. Um, Deanna at least had her mom, but she lost her father, and then finding out she had a sister that
Oh,
died.
yep.
yes,
Like they
Secret
all
sibling.
have
so tragic.
So many things.
all tragic.
Yeah.
Like, talk about putting them through the blender and being like, good luck.
Yeah.
So by the time they get to Picard, which is why I'm okay with season one, not much season two, but season one,
Mhm.
they're all broken people. And Picard even mentions that to Jack when he's trying to pull him out of the Borg mindset. He was like, I went there to die. Like, I found my family, but I put up my wall. I pushed him away. So I just went home to die. And that was it. He would rather die alone than try to fix with the people that he cared the most. And even though, and Gates says this, and even though he finally squared away with his issues with his dad, that was literally only 6 months prior to Beverly coming back. So would he have been able to handle being a father, not knowing if he was going to be like his father? Like he wouldn't have known. He just figured it out. So again, they're all broken and they all think that they might have known. And yes, he's right. I could have, maybe not. I don't know, but you didn't give me that choice. Absolutely. But she's trying to make the best decision for her child because she is a mother first. And then he's thinking about his fit. Like everyone just has, and that's why season 3 is so great because they were just all at the bottom of the barrel and they had to work together and be like, oh, my family's together again. Yay. Because they worked so good together. And that's what they were missing. Beverly was missing her crew. Picard was missing his crew. Riker was missing them. I mean, there was that with Beverly hugging Worf and Geordi, like those were genuine, even though Worf was like, get away from me. It was just because they needed each other. Worf hadn't seen Picard in what he said, like 11 years. Like they all just spread out and they were all miserable.
Yeah. And that's
And
kind
then
of
all of a sudden
the
they're back at that poker table, right?
that's right.
Mhm.
That ending. That's kind of even
Mhm.
like in the second episode of that like little 17 seconds and then no one scenario. Like no one scenario, like it's like we had to start it even if we didn't finish it right away. Like we had to like just start it because it was like the feelings left with that 17 seconds are hard to sit with. But
Right.
like when you get through no one scenario, like that is when they start working together to figure out the problem and get it out of this gravity well and figure out like what's actually happening in this nebula, which is kind of a really beautiful moment. Like whether there's the four, I think they're when they're all like kind of together and like figuring out the problem and like what are they, this similar space jellyfish, almost like Encounter at
Yeah.
Farpoint a little bit.
And
It was,
they
I
mentioned
love that.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
nice, like such a great moment. So yeah, Yeah, I agree with you. It's very well done. Like season 3 was really well done overall. I mean, there's some cracks in the seams, but I think
Yeah.
I like it quite a bit, and just and resolving those characters more than what we got with the movies, unfortunately.
Yeah.
One,
Correct. But I mean, at least it was a better send off than what they got.
yes,
So, I mean,
yeah,
this was better. And they also highlighted the kids with Jack and
yep,
Sydney and, and even Seven finding the family that she's been looking for. Like,
yeah,
there was a lot of, I mean, and just the relationship that she had with Shaw,
hmm
knowing that secretly he actually respected her, you know. Um, and you could take that however you want. Like some people are like he was still a jerk, which he was,
hmm
granted, but he was also going through emotional trauma, PTSD, and all of that because of the Borg. So again, it it just unified the characters better. Um, and it highlighted the relationship. I know we kind of make the joke of where it's like Beverly and Picard are taking their son to school. Well, in the shuttle, but it's a cute family moment. It's a moment that Picard never thought he would have. He thought he was going to die alone. And here he is with the mother of his child, and they're taking him off, to his first ship that happens to be the Enterprise.
Of course.
hmm
I can I just segue real fast?
yeah,
Yeah.
Really hate. Not Mrs. White flame hate, but close that they rebranded the Titan as the Enterprise. I get the point.
hmm
Here's the children of the, Enterprise D on the Enterprise G. But the Titan is its own legacy.
Uh-huh.
yeah,
And I feel like just taking it away and branding it something else is like diminishing that and the crew that was on there.
yeah. It's kind of disrespectful.
A
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah,
Was not happy.
I
Rude.
felt the same way. Yeah,
Rude. It was very rude.
yeah. Should have been like
Yeah.
a new ship or something. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I
Yes.
agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's too bad.
Because Savick had the Titan before Riker did.
Yep.
So the Titan had this whole legacy before it, just to be like, we're going to just name it the Enterprise because that's what people like. Anyways, that's a segue. Sorry.
Well, no, it's true. It's a good point. And that doesn't feel like an organic like thing in this. It feels like a Easter
Right.
egg that we're gonna throw in there for for fans or something.
Yeah.
That didn't
Yeah.
land.
Yeah. They could have brought back the Galaxy class and make the Enterprise D to the G or something like that. You know what I mean? Like they could have done something
Yeah.
in that aspect to be like, it's similar. I just didn't like that they just took the Titan and was like, we're just going to change the name and now it's something else. So,
Right. Yeah. Um, one last thing that I really kind of wanted to not do this episode without mentioning is sort of the influence of, or maybe shadow that casts over this relationship of like Jack Crusher, like
Mm-hmm.
Picard's friend, Beverly's ex-husband. And I know that Jesse, you did a whole episode on Jack Crusher, which you
sure did.
dug deep into it. So like what do you guys think like obviously that was a huge influence. Like Picard even talks about that in Attached, where he's like, "Is my friend," and I just couldn't acknowledge. I thought it was a crush at first, but it was more than that, and I had to bury that down because he's my best friend. And even like years after he's gone, like he still feels that sort of like, I can't do it because it's my friend kind of thing. Like, so what impact does that sort of shadow or legacy cast on the relationship as a whole for you?
Jack was the whole reason uh, that even Jack the Son is even here. Which people were like, "Oh, that's so weird." And I know even Jack made the joke of like she named me after her dead husband. Ew. But no, Picard was like, "Well, no, I would have done the same thing because it, Jack and Picard. Jack, I think, was the brother Picard never had. Right? He always had this volatile relationship with his brother. He clearly had a volatile relationship with his father. His mother was his only advocate, and she was gone. And I think Jack was someone that saw Picard for who he was. Picard could be himself. Clearly, they weren't in the same age because we had seen, what was it, Tapestry, and he was graduating, and there was Corey, not Jack, That's a
Yeah.
whole other. But they went to the academy together, so they were close in age. So Beverly has a thing for older women because Picard and Beverly are 19 years apart. So
Mm.
clearly Jack and her were at least 17 or something. Um, but I think Picard just felt like himself, like he could just be himself around Jack. Now, obviously, that's how he met Beverly. He probably was smitten by her, but like she said, the more times they spend time together, those feelings he was developing, he's like, "Oh, this is so wrong. Like I should love her like a sister, not something else." And the guilt was there. Um, and because Jack died under Picard's command, now of course we never know the full story. We've heard that it was an accident. We heard that Picard made a call that ended in Jack's death because I know Wesley mentioned something like that in the first season. Um, he even mentioned accident in attached. So we don't know the full story, but that guilt of like, I killed my brother and I've been in love with his wife, and he he basically was judge, jury, and executioner for himself. Like he was just like, this is my she can never know, and I will carry that till I die because that's what I deserve.
Hmm.
Um, for Beverly, obviously, loved Jack. Like I don't think these feelings for Picard ever really came until after Jack's death. But like she said, there was an attraction. No, as long as no touchy, we're fine. But she loved Jack so much. And so losing him, she lost a part of herself. And then she had to raise his son. And then Picard is just gone because Picard was also a part of Jack. And so then all of a sudden he's just gone. So losing Jack and now Picard. So I think Beverly had to kind of also just put up a wall and just protect herself in order to just get through the day. Not only raising her son, but just being a doctor and going through whatever she was doing at those 10 years before she went on the Enterprise. But Jack just carried that, they want to just honor Jack in the best way possible. They want to honor Jack in just being Wesley's father, and how to show of how great of a man he was, and how much he loved his son and loved his mother. Um, but them naming or she naming their son Jack, I think Gates says it. Yes, she was hiding Jack, but it was also like, hey, hello, like he would be able to figure out pretty quick that this kid is named Jack Crusher. Like she was hiding, but not. Obviously he did. But the son would not be there if it wasn't for, dead husband Jack. So yeah, he's really the pinnacle of the whole thing when it comes to their relationship, which is why it's so complicated. But I think he would just want them to be happy. I don't think Jack would want them to
Yeah.
suffer. You know, he would want them to be like, "Hey, I'm gone. Like, you guys take care of each other and stuff." But oh, those two, they're so complicated.
I know, and I forget how Picard, I mean, not that I do, but now that we're kind of just talking about this whole relationship and like mentioning Wesley here and there, and I'm like, to top it all off, like Wesley seeking Picard as a father figure,
Hmm.
during his time
Yeah,
on the Enterprise, and Picard's adamant, like, it makes like his reactions to Wesley make a little bit more sense too, where he was
right.
like, I absolutely cannot slip into like that role. And it wasn't necessarily, it's probably coming from that place of, I can't replace your dad.
Yeah, yeah. And even though Wesley had he respected Picard, and he even in that the final mission, he was saying like, I did all this for you because he didn't have a father figure.
Hmm.
And so Picard was that father figure. Riker was that father figure.
Mm.
These men were very important to Wesley because he didn't grow up with a father. And so, um, I think he just seeked approval in some ways to make someone proud of him. He knows his
Yeah.
mom was always going to be proud of him. So he's like, that's too easy. But to just, and Picard even said how proud of he was of Wesley. And so I think that was very validating for Wesley, just to even later on make the decision to become a traveler.
Mm.
Um, I think that played a very important role. So everything he learned from the Enterprise guided him to his path.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said overall. Um, this was a good conversation. I feel like sometimes when we started this podcast, this like kind of like love and Star Trek, like romance stories and stuff, it's almost intimidating to want to take on some of the really big ones, because like we've done a few like
Yeah.
one-off episodes and it's like fun to just dig into like that little episode, but like Picard Beverly like is a big one that's intimidating. And I know like when we first followed each other like on socials, I was like, okay, this has to be the person that we do this one
Oh
with.
yeah.
So I'm glad that we made this work. The one thing left we have the final segment that we do for this show is a rating scale where we rate the romance in question, and it's a 5-point patent pending rating scale. Uh, and I'll share that just for you and for any listeners that might need a refresher. At the bottom, meaning a very toxic relationship, is a red alert. A little bit above that is a yellow alert, pretty toxic. Fascinating, where it's just a fascinating relationship. We're not sure. There's some elements of good, some elements of not so good. Fully functional is a very firing on all cylinders relationship, solid. And then of course resistance is futile, which is just too hot to handle. So. Given our conversation, given what we've seen on the show, Picard and Crusher, Jean-Luc Picard, Beverly Crusher, where do they fall on our rating scale? And Jessi, we usually let our guests go last, so you get a little moment to think here if you want to place it. But Nicole, why don't you start us off?
I do first want to suggest to you that you have like specific definitions for all those because I'm pretty sure that you've like phrased them differently,
I
especially
I have, yeah. I was about to defend myself, but
So that's just like pick on with that. Because like now in this episode, like you've described them that way, and so I'm like, well, I'm gonna be honest, this is maybe one of the hardest. I think it is at this point the hardest relationship for me to rate because I feel like at various points it falls into. I don't know if it ever. I don't know about red alert. I think I have a certain type of pairing or relationship like that kind of fits like truly toxic. But and so I don't really feel like it falls there, but I do feel like it hits the other four at various points. Um
Right.
so I'm like trying to be like on average, where would I put it? I think it's hard to call them fully functional
uh,
most of the time because they don't seem to be fully
Solid
functional.
is not, yeah.
yeah.
It's a hard
Um
word for them.
I feel like resistance is futile plays into it though, because
At
like
times.
how many years and
Right.
there's still the attraction, there's still the deep. I mean, they have that friendship to work off of too, but
Mhm.
you know, it. I don't know. Clearly, they both kind of have. There's an attraction, and there's more there beyond their friendship. So like,
Yeah.
it's futile. It also feels cruel to use resistance as futile in a Picard relationship.
Oh,
Um, I almost want to put it like it wavers mostly between like fascinating and like occasionally yellow alert.
Fascinating.
Yellow alert.
But I think just with their communication issues and just like we talked about how complicated it is and oof, I mean with the lack of strong communication, it's really hard for them to tease apart and like work through a lot of those complicated aspects to this relationship. But overall, I mean, I've always we clearly wanted to see more. I'm like so annoyed that like again, this is the fifth time they've broken up. What all of this is off screen. Again, you gave me an apple core. So
Yeah. Someone ate the apple behind us and then
here you go.
gave us the
Yeah.
trash.
Um, but yeah, so fascinating, but kind of dips into like yellow alert occasionally, and just the way they can, I guess, fight or like put up their walls and that kind of thing, and just sort of like maybe not have the other person's. I don't know. Either they're trying to protect themselves or they're just misinterpreting things. So it just depends on this particular situation. But a sprinkle of resistance is futile,
Resistance is futile.
just because like they seem to have, there's a magnetism there. So,
Yeah.
That was my really long answer. I'm so sorry, but follow
It's
that, Joe.
complicated.
Yeah. I I think you're right when you're saying that I kind of show my hand when I'm like giving the definitions because I sort of like have used some of those phrases already. When I on while I wrote, what I wrote down was I gave it a fascinating.
Fascinating.
I because it's interesting, but it's also complicated. One phrase that I didn't use when I was defining it that I have used in the past is fascinating is like we'd like to see a little more. And
Yeah, you do usually
I do
say.
usually say that, and I forgot to say that, but I would
Did you
like to.
forget? Or
I
you...
I don't know. Maybe it was like a mental. I
You
don't know.
had it in the email that you sent me.
I
So
did.
there
Ah,
was,
so it's there. It's there.
yeah,
Yeah, it's there.
it's there.
But yeah, no, I mean, for me, fascinating, complicated, interesting. I'd like to see a little bit more of it. I think that sometimes when I'm thinking of the yellow and red alerts, I'm thinking of like really toxic,
That's what
manipulation. I
Yeah.
think like for me, like the big, like one of the primary like blazing red examples of red alert is that Tom Paris Alice episode that we did,
Oh
where
yeah.
it's like the shuttle that falls in love with him.
For
Like that.
Gold Ducat and
Oh, that's a
Win.
pretty
Yeah.
good red alert. That's a good,
That's
yeah.
that's a red.
We got to do that. We got to do that. But this one, I don't think like there are elements where they're not great with each other, but I feel like there's such a deep like they care deeply for each other
No.
that's
Right.
that I feel like there isn't an element where one's trying to like manipulate necessarily. I mean, sometimes they use words where they're like trying to win the argument per se, like in that one scene, like that feels a little manipulative, but there's never like this like I'm trying to use you for a goal or something. Like there's just like this
Right.
deep like emotional attachment that they have, and they're just bad at communicating it, so it can't really go to a fully functional for me. So I'm gonna stick with the fascinating. How about you, Jesse?
So I was torn because in your notes you put yellow alert was not
Hmm.
awful, but lots of red flags. And
I
then
did say that. I
fascinating.
did say that.
Yeah, but
That's right.
fascinating. Interesting. We'd like to see more. There's a lot of red flags in these
Yeah.
two. Not horrible, like not a Gold Ducat and Kai Wynn situation,
Uh-huh.
but definitely red flags in the sense of like again, the communication and just assuming, it they were basically their own enemies, you know,
Hmm.
put in this situation. But it wasn't anything toxic in red flags, right? So I also I'm gonna do fascinating
Fascinating.
because the relationship is interesting. It has its ups and downs. It's the will they, won't they. There are great little moments. Some moments I'm all like, why didn't she do that? But okay, or why didn't he do that? But then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, they did that. And it's just, it keeps you on your toes and it makes you want more, right? And that is the whole premise of the relationship is we've always wanted more. And unfortunately, the fans never got that. Um, so that's why I couldn't do the fully functional or resistance is futile because we never saw it.
Yeah.
But fascinating. I think they're right smack in the middle. You know,
Yeah.
nothing horrible, but nothing great. So, um, they are their worst enemy, unfortunately, when it comes to that. But, as much as there's so many issues with their relationship, and doesn't matter whose fault is what or why or what, as you said, um, they care about each other. And that's always highlighted no matter what the situation is, even in the host with Odon. As much as it hurt him a little bit that someone was eyeing his girl, he was all like, Beverly, I'm here for you. I'm your friend, you know. Um, or even the chase happens right after lessons. So I find this absolutely hilarious.
Hmm.
So she watches Picard get a girlfriend and all this stuff that she has to watch from afar. And all of a sudden they break up. You know, Nella had good reasons. And that next episode is the chase, and he's going through all this stuff with his old professor and trying to figure out his death. And she's the first one right next. I'm going to help you. We got a mystery. Let's do it. Like, no hesitation. Even though you broke my heart last week, I'm still going to help you. So those are those moments where you're just like, you're rooting for these kids, but
Yeah.
we don't see it.
We don't see it.
Yeah.
We don't see it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, anyway, yes, that's very well said. Thank you, Jessi, so much for coming on our show. This was truly delightful. I know Crusher Convo. How often do you release episodes?
Every other week on Friday, I like to go live at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And yeah, and I like to hear from listeners, so you can chime in a penny for your thoughts, and whatever the episode is, you can let me know what your thoughts are, and I'll air them live. So,
Mm,
or meet me in the chat. And yeah, I have lots of fun interacting with the listeners, depending on what it is. But yeah, I typically like to drop on Fridays.
that's so great. Is there anything else you want to plug at all, like social media sites or any other projects?
No projects right now. I will be having an interview here with Martin Roth with Cherry Tree, and so that's going to be fun. But I know Doug Jones is trying to do his documentary right now, so I've been, spreading the word, helping him out.
Oh yeah.
But other than that, not much happening. I'm going to STLV, so if anyone's going to Vegas, I'll see you there. I'll have a table, and I pitched a couple ideas for panel ideas, but we'll see if they accept them. But yeah, that's about it.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. And thank you to everyone else listening to the episode today. As far as our socials, you can find us at DS Love Pod on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. So follow if you like what you hear. And if you're really liking what you hear, you can rate and review wherever you listen. Until next time, everybody, love long and prosper.